Welcome back to Mississippi Stories. My name is Marshall Ramsey, editor at large at Mississippi Today. I tell you, our guest today is somebody that probably doesn't need an introduction at this point, but I'm going to go ahead and read her bio to you because there's a few things in it I'd like to ask her questions about. So, of course, without further ado, it's Angie Thomas. As you know, she was born, raised, and still resides here in Jackson, Mississippi, and is indicated by her accent. Now, that's the first thing I wanted to make issue with. It ain't like you talk like you're from Mississippi now. So that kind of cracked me up a little bit. You're a former teen rapper. Now, I did know that, whose greatest accomplishment was writing an article that has had an article written in Right On magazine. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You hold a BFA in creative writing from Belhaven University and an unofficial degree in hip hop. Once again, congratulations. And you can still rap if needed. So that's one thing you've got over me. Lord knows if I had to do that, I would be in big trouble. You are the inaugural winner of the Walter Dean Myers Grant 2015, awarded by the We Need Diverse Books. Amen. Your debut novel, I can't read English today. It's terrible. The Hate You Give it was your senior project in college, The Hate You Give was. And needless to say, that turned out well.
Yeah.
And I love the story because I'm going to get you to tell just briefly how that all came to be, because I just love that you can put on Twitter, I need an agent, and then suddenly the whole world just says, hello, we're here for you. That's great, because usually when I put stuff out on Twitter, doesn't have quite that good of a result. Anyway, that was just a huge bestseller, still a bestseller, still on the New York Times bestselling, which it gave birth to On the Come Up, which was also a #1 New York Times bestseller and is in production right now to be a film produced by, well, Angie Thomas. I think that's pretty neat too. We need to unpack that out as well. And then you released one of my favorites is Find Your Voice, which is for anybody who wants to be a writer, they need to order this immediately because it is like having a nice writing class all in a handy book. And the thing I like about it's a little bit different than some books is you actually have to do the work inside the book too. And that's pretty cool. Your new book is out now, and it's also #1 on the New York Times best-selling list. Concrete Rose is a prequel to The Hate You Give. It focuses on, really honestly, one of my favorite characters, Maverick Carter. And I think the best way to sum it up is how this incredible man became a man. And it really does define what manhood truly is about. So fantastic book too. Angie, it's so good to see you again.
Thank you. So good to see you in the middle of this snowpocalypse.
I know what I said. Mother Nature did what poor Dr. Dobbs, our state health officer, hasn't been able to do in Mississippi. He figured out a way to keep us at home.
Yes.
So the question is, have you run out of bread and milk yet?
No, not yet. We stocked up on both bread and milk, and we have the deep freezer full, so we're pretty good.
I know somebody's like, well, what happens if the power goes out? So we'll just put the stuff outside. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
To keep it cold.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for taking the time on me. Like I said, a lot to unpack, just because you've been so incredibly busy the last, I think this is like the 4th or 5th time I've gotten to interview you, had the honor to do that. And it's just been fun watching your career trajectory just literally go into orbit. But I know that also comes with a lot of pressure and a lot of changes and it's not been a totally easy ride, but it's been an incredible one. And not to sound corny, but I'm incredibly happy for you because I think it's, you like to see good people get good things.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just honored to be in this position. I'm blessed to be able to write books for a living. That's a dream for so many people. So to be able to do it, I'm thankful. So thankful.
When you were a kid, you grew up in the Georgetown neighborhood in Jackson, Mississippi. Is it truly the equal of Garden Heights? Is that what you base Garden Heights on, was Georgetown?
Yeah, bits and pieces. Yeah. I'd say Georgetown and Garden Heights are quite a bit alike. They both have not so great reputations, but once you get in there and you get to know the people, you can find a home. And that's what it was for me. It was still home despite all the other stuff. So I definitely focused on the people aspect of Georgetown when crafting Garden Heights.
Yeah, and you grew up in a house that your grandfather bought.
Mm-hmm.
Which, and I touched on this, I got to interview a few days ago for Mississippi Public Broadcasting as well, but we touched on this a little bit, that you actually, you and your mom had decided to renovate the house and be able to allow a new family to grow up in it. And I thought that was incredibly cool.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. And they own it. So they own it.
Yeah, that's
I
good
have,
too.
yeah, like I have nothing against people who decide to rent property. That's, your prerogative. But I know that in a community like Georgetown, home ownership makes a big difference. There's a certain pride that comes with home ownership. There's a certain investment that comes with it. And when you have that investment of your own home, you have a certain pride about it, and it's going to show around the neighborhood, around the community. But also, it's giving people stability.
Yeah.
Stability is so important, especially right now. Any kind of stability somebody can have. So this single mom with two kids, she had been living in a hotel, and
Wow.
she works full time at a local hospital, has a nice job, but fell on hard times, and she and her kids were again living in a hotel. So we reached out to Ronnie Crudup Jr., who runs a fantastic program for housing alongside being a state politician. And we got the house renovated and got them in it. So
And it looks nice too. I saw the pictures.
yeah,
It's pretty good.
yeah, yeah, it looks really good. We were very impressed by it. I was blown away because, for so long throughout my childhood and then up until like a few years ago, my mom and I struggled to keep things going at times. That house, we had every time we looked up, there was something going on with it. When we wanted this and we wanted that done. And so now to see a family in there with all the things fixed, and then too with it looking the way we wished it would have,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
Your mom, by the way, I got to meet her when you came in to interview with Conversation. She came and joined you on that. Your mom's a trip. She really is.
Yeah.
But she really was a big, important part of your life growing up. I love the story about you were at the park and you saw a shooting, and your mom just kind of swept you up and took you to the library and said, "No, we're going to show you that the world really isn't like this."
Yeah, yeah, the Medgar Evers Library. Yeah, I was in the park, me and some other kids, and these two drug dealers got into a shootout. Despite the fact us kids were on the playground, and us kids, we all took off running. None of us were hurt, thankfully. But I got on my bike and I rode, ironically, to Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. We're
Yeah.
talking about the man about nonviolence. I rode to the street named after the man who was all about nonviolence. And so my mom found me on Martin Luther King, and she put me in the car and she took me to the Medgar Evers Library, and told the librarian what had happened. And she let her know too, like, I can't take her on a trip. This is all she's going to see, in the physical sense. But her imagination is there. If you could give her some books to show her that there's more to the world than this, that would mean the world to me. And the best thing you can ever tell a librarian is give my kid books. So like I left there with a whole stack. And that was it for me. That was the day it started, and I recognized the power of storytelling.
At that point, did you think that, I want to do this for a living? Because I was that way. When I was 8, I wanted to be a cartoonist. So I completely get it if that's what you wanted to do.
I wanted to tell stories, and I loved books, and suddenly I did want to write books, or just tell some kind of story. Like I would watch movies and I would tell my mom, I want to write something that ends up on a screen like that one day,
Yeah.
and it was just storytelling in general. I just loved it. I loved coming up with characters and plots and stuff like that. Like when my friends and I would do pretend, I always came up with the storyline, and I was basically the little director. And I was a little controlling director. So if we're playing doctor and I don't think you put enough energy into resuscitating that patient, I'm going to tell you, So I was that kid. So it was just always there.
Oh, you haven't changed at all.
Not at all.
I read your tweets now. I know better.
Oh, I haven't.
But that's cool though. And it's great that you pursued it. I mean, when you were coming up and you're going to school, you ended up taking that writing class at Belhaven. And so at this point, you're invested. You're just like, this is what I'm going to do. But did you ever think that you would be sitting where you are today?
No,
Okay.
no, No, I
Sure.
didn't. I think it's a dream for a lot of writers. I mean, who doesn't, as an author, wish that, yeah, I hope that my book is a bestseller and yeah, that they make it into a film. I think that's a dream for a lot of writers, most writers. But, I didn't know if it would actually happen. I thought I was just dreaming. So I'm amazed every day that this happened to me. This is still happening for me. Here I am working on my third book is, well, technically fourth book is out, and now I got this second movie in the works and all of this and that. So I'm amazed. I'm thankful and amazed.
One of the horror stories you always see with writers is that their book is adapted and that it turns out and it doesn't look anything like the original book. And I know poor Tom Clancy for years would fuss about that, because his books would, be totally rewritten for the movie script. When I saw The Hate You Give, I was like, dang, this is really, really close to the way I saw it in my head
Yeah,
when I was
yeah.
reading it. And I know you were very, very involved with the characters, which was a blessing to the actors, the fact that they were able to get inside your head when they're trying. And I know that Maverick was definitely one of those characters on that. How did you manage to get that kind of power? I say power, but were you able to get that kind of access into the movies when a lot of writers could only dream of it?
Yeah, I have to give credit to the production team and specifically the director of The Hate You Give, George Tillman Jr. George is now like a big brother to me. We're close. I text his wife. Me and his wife text at least once a week, so we're cool. We're close now. But George, from the very get go, he told me, "I want you involved in this." George had previously done an adaptation of a Nicholas Sparks novel, and he had Mr. Sparks involved, and he recognized the importance of that from that film alone. And he was like, you know what? I want you involved. I want you involved. And so he's like, I'm going to hit you up. I'm going to hit you up. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. This is Hollywood talk. People, I've heard from
Right.
other authors. Yeah, they tell you that, but they don't care. And like every week I'd hear from George while they were working on the script, and he would ask me about some things where I was like, it would have been okay if you would have gone with your gut on this. He's like, nah, I want your opinion. I want to know what you think. I want to know how you want this done. So he wanted me there on set. So I spent like 6 weeks on set, and I would have to travel sometimes to go do book events because I'm still an author.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my day job.
Yeah, my day job. And so he'd be like, yo, you leaving? When you coming back? So I have to give credit to him for that. He made sure I was involved from jump, and I'm thankful for that. I think that the film benefited from it.
Yeah, I think so too. And of course, you are now actually a producer on the next movie. And tell a lot of people may not realize what a producer does. What are some of the duties that you're doing as a producer for the movie?
I'm still figuring it all out. But really, though, what I'm learning is that a producer is kind of like the put togetherer, is what I call it. So I've been in all the conversations about who the director is going to be. George had a scheduling conflict, so he couldn't direct. So I've been in the conversations about who's the director. I've been giving my input on script. We've been working a lot on the script, so I've been giving my input on that. Like it's basically like you give your opinions. That's what I've seen. The studio ultimately has the final say, and I'm still learning as I go. So I'm still, not in the position to be like, nope, it has to be this. It has to be this. But I do give my opinion and on every single thing, every single aspect. So we're right now in the early casting stage. We're looking for our main character, our Bree, right now. And I wrote the breakdown for that's going to go out on the casting websites. So like I've been involved in a lot of the creative stuff. I haven't been on the budget calls, which I'm okay with because I'm not good with money. So I'd be like, just give us all the money and we will make a great movie. That's it. I mean, that's simple, give us all the money. So, but it doesn't work like that. So
Is it being filmed over in Atlanta again too?
Possibly, or North Carolina.
Really?
Yeah. I will say, because I know some Mississippians always come at me like, why don't y'all film here? I have no control over that part.
No,
That's not on me. That's one thing I don't have control over. But I do know too, a lot of these states offer tax breaks for films that we should, not to get political, that we
No,
should.
I think we actually they came back, so that's a good.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I'm glad that they have. So I'm gonna be pushing for it, going forward. I'm writing my fourth novel now, and part of it is set in Jackson. So I'm giving them no choice but to film here for that one.
exactly. Because it's always weird when you see movies that are supposed to be set in a place, and you're like,
Hmm.
it's like I'm having a lot of trouble with the Karate Kid stuff, Cobra Kai,
Yeah.
because I grew up in Atlanta, so I'm sitting there watching Cobra Kai, which is supposed to be in Los Angeles, and I'm like, that's down the street from where I used to live." It's a little weird. That's Stone Mountain. That's
Yeah,
weird, So that's.
yeah, yeah,
Do you think
yeah.
you'll end up having a production company someday?
Oh yeah, I've started one.
Okay.
I've started one. It's in the early stages, like on the come up is the first project, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still learning, and I said I didn't want to take on anyone else's projects right now. I'm like, I'm still in the learning process. Let me make
Yeah.
screw ups with my own stuff before I mess up other people's stuff. So yeah, it's called the Tough Act Productions. I'm really excited about what we're gonna do with it. Yeah, and so I have a couple of projects lined up with that. But again, for me, it was like, let me do with my own stuff and mess it up first before I mess up somebody else.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You've had a lot come at you fast, and I can tell you just on my own front, it's easy being creative, at least for I mean, when you're creative, because you got that right brain thing going for you, but then suddenly you got to start engaging the left brain, and
Yes,
so you literally went from, oh, this is my senior project, to now you're producing movies
right.
in a very short amount of time. And I mean, have you've been pretty blessed though to have good supporting cast around you. You've had a lot of good people to work with and to mentor and to learn from. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, I'm really thankful for that. I'm thankful for fellow writers who have reached out and have offered support and insight. I've had a chance to come across some great, brilliant people who've given me some wonderful advice. Like I got a chance to meet Tyler Perry and go
Oh,
to his studio opening and text him every now and then with a question, stuff like that. I try not to bother him because it's Tyler Perry, but I that for me, that was a great one. That was a great connection to make. But I'm thankful that I have family like my mom and my cousins and stuff who keep me grounded, and help me and give me advice from an outsider's perspective, because
yeah.
sometimes that's the best advice to get, somebody who doesn't know the industry so well, and doesn't know about this and this when it comes to publishing or film, but they can tell you from a moral standpoint, they can tell you from just even a spiritual standpoint if needed. So I'm really thankful for those connections just as much as the professional ones.
I think one of the healthiest things that ever happened to me was that I ended up marrying somebody who met me when I was a high school janitor. And
That's
so
awesome.
she's incredibly proud of all the things I've accomplished, but that's not why she married me.
That's
And
awesome.
so there's a lot. That's a very, very healthy kind of thing. So you're
Yeah.
right about that. It is good to have good people. And another thing too, and I'm glad to hear that Tyler Perry has actually been pretty cool in working with you, because I have a theory that truly talented and successful people are usually pretty decent people, because they
Yeah.
don't really, the people on the way up or on the way down are usually the ones that are a little bit more difficult to deal with, because they're
Yes.
trying to climb over your back on that. But that is
Yes.
that is good to hear. And I've actually kind of found that you're kind of that way now too, that you're actually a pretty cool person to talk to. And even though you've had all this great success, I haven't noticed that you've changed.
Thank you. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. I bought a house for my mom and I live in the same house and I'm 32, I think. I forget my own age. I'm 32,
It's
but
the pandemic.
if my room looks a mess, my mom is still like, you need to do something about this. This is awful. She doesn't care that, like, the day that Concrete Rose was announced as being a number one New York Times bestselling book, my mom was like, "Yeah, that's nice, but your room looks a mess."
Yeah.
Like, you can't
That's
get
it.
a big
Yeah.
head when
Exactly. But that is so incredibly healthy. And that also so
yes.
incredibly sounds like the mom that I met that day.
Yes, yes, yes.
What was that though? Seriously, to be able to buy a house for your mom after all she gave to you.
Yeah, it's still, I'm so thankful for that. My mom sacrificed a lot for me and for my grandmother. My mom was a full-time caregiver to my grandmother who had dementia and was bedridden and had diabetes. And my mom left the job to become a full-time caregiver to her. My mom had to sleep on a couch for years. She
Wow.
gave up. We had a two-bedroom house. My grandmother had one room, I had the other. My mom had a couch. So like to get her a house where she has the big room with the big closet and the big bathroom, and if she doesn't want to sleep in her room, she has a guest room she can sleep in too, that for me, that's a blessing. I'm so thankful to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. One of your gifts is that you can see stories before the rest of us can see, and you're a great world builder too in your novels.
Thank you.
And I mean, like J.K. Rowling kind of world building.
Thank you.
That's about as nice a compliment, I guess. Well, I would not quite George Lucas, but you're close. But I mean, seriously, you have literally created worlds that are so incredibly rich and detailed and wonderful. But you've got this gift. You can see things that we're blind to. Obviously, the hate you give. You caught a wave before I think a lot of people recognized that it was a wave, and I say a lot of people that should have recognized it was a wave because the stories were out there every day, but you were able to capture it and really open that world up to people like myself. I'll say this, that are a little bit more naive to some of the issues that are out there. The same ways with Concrete Rose. I mean, Maverick, suddenly, we have what happened on the 6th of January, and suddenly everybody in the world is talking about, well, this toxic masculinity and everything like that. And then your book literally, bam, lands on the 20th, and it's whatever day it was that it came out. And it's like completely shows you, okay, no, there's a better way to be a man. And I mean, just seeing Maverick's journey and how he became who he was, I was like, damn, how does she do that? I mean, is there a secret? Do you have like a magic 8 ball that actually tells the future, or how do you pull this off?
I don't. I wish I did. I I think when I write these books, it's about the character so much for me and their journey, and all the other stuff ends up finding its way into the story. I knew with Maverick that I wanted to tell the story of this young boy trying to figure out what it means to be a man, because there have been uh minor conversations along the way about this.
Yeah.
And there have been even discussions in Kids Lit about books for boys, and talking about what it means manhood looks like to them and toxic masculinity. And I was once on a panel where there was a big discussion about toxic masculinity and what is being shown to our boys. And that was one thing that really sparked something within me. But also just being a Black woman and being around Black men and Black boys my whole life, and knowing some of the messaging that's been sent to them of don't cry, that makes you a punk. Don't suck it up. Men don't cry. Men handle their own. Blah blah blah. Men take care of this. Men do that. Blah blah blah. Without giving them the benefit of having emotions, of having feelings, of showing emotions and showing feelings. And if I knew, I'm not a 17-year-old boy. I've never been a 17-year-old boy, and I knew that this would be so much out of my scope of knowledge that I would need to talk to Black men and Black boys before I did it. So I have to give them credit for them helping me catch the wave, because I guess these are conversations some of them are having. And they told me, when you're writing this, let him show those feelings. Let him cry on the page. Push back against that, because for so long we've been told we can't. So credit goes to them for being my magic 8 ball.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that too, because and I did ask you this before. When you're like you said, you're a 32-year-old Black woman. That's the age you are today. You may be 33 tomorrow, 31, just if you remember the exact age.
Yes.
But like you said, you're trying to get inside the head of a 17-year-old boy. So obviously you had friends that read over what you had written and said, yeah, okay, this is good or this is good. But what I'm particularly impressed with is the fact that you actually had Maverick cry at one point
Hmm.
in the book.
Yeah.
That's strong as onions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I had to. And at first I was like, do I let him do that? Because even I've seen the messaging of boys don't cry.
Yeah.
you know. And again, it took Black men telling me, no, no, please let him do that. Give our boys that permission, because they don't get that enough. Not
Yeah.
just Black boys, but boys, period. Don't
Yeah.
get that permission nearly enough. But specifically when it comes to Black boys, this idea that they don't feel emotion further dehumanizes them.
Right.
And the dehumanization of them is what leads to them being seen as threats, as things that go bump in the night, as something that needs to be neutralized. And as an author, humanization of Black kids is my big goal, and further humanizing them.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I mean, and that's one thing I really do like about your books is because you do a great job um, helping fight against the image you might see on the. No offense to the 6 o'clock news, but I mean,
But
to,
yeah,
on the 6 o'clock news, you know, and
yes.
so I take it that is why you chose to go into young adult literature as opposed to just adult literature. Although I have to say, I'm 53 years old and I enjoy reading your books just as much. And I mean, John Green was kind of the same way too. You know, there's a certain degree, but you know, one of the most profound books I remember reading in middle school was "A Hero Ain't Nothing But a Sandwich."
Mm,
And it was like a book that I think every parent screamed about. Oh my God, there's language in it and stuff like that. And I know you spend a lot of time getting banned.
yes.
In fact, I think you take a certain amount of pride in it, to be honest with you.
I do. I do. I will never forget when The Hate You Give was first banned. It was banned in a school district outside of Houston, Texas, and it made the news. I think it even got on the national news when it happened. And I was in Kroger on 55 here in Jackson, and I'm in Kroger, and this older white gentleman comes up to me. He was like, "You wrote that there book, didn't you?" And I'm like, this is so out of left field. I'm like, yes, sir. He said, I heard they banned that thing in Texas. Girl, you're doing something right. They ban everything there. So
Oh, that's awesome.
that was like the first moment I took it as a badge of honor, because he just kind of patted my shoulder, like, keep it up, you know?
I didn't know where that was going though when he said you banned that damn book. You were thinking, oh, God.
So like, that was a portrait of Mississippi people don't see nearly enough. That conversation alone right there, him congratulating me on getting banned in Texas, like that gentleman doesn't know what he did for me that day. So
That is incredible. That is, and you know, but that's in a way though. I mean, of course, I know whenever people get mad at me about a cartoon and everything else, I'm like, yeah, people are going to pay attention to the cartoon now.
yes.
There's no such thing as bad publicity, of course, but
No,
um,
no. And
but
the thing about it, when you tell teenagers not to read something, it only makes them want to read it more. Like my sales skyrocket every time they ban my books. I'm okay with it.
I love telling the story. This story, it's so true. Bill Dunlap, who's a writer and artist and just a very talented guy. He and I were sitting next to each other at the Mississippi Book Festival, and we were just hamming it up. We come in, people would trickle in, they'd buy our books. We were happy, and you were sitting like right to our left, and there was a line all the way out to pretty much the Mississippi River from that spot in Jackson. But they were all teenagers, and they were all wanting to get your book and meet you. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. Number one, you get a teenager to read. That's a major victory right there. But number two, they're reading something they need to hear. And at the end of the day, that's kind of why you get up in the morning, isn't it?
It is, especially for these kids here in Mississippi. And there's the added bonus of them knowing I'm from here.
Yeah.
And what that does for them, when they do see me in Kroger, it's like I'm reachable, I'm touchable, I exist, I'm real, and I'm from here. And it further helps them realize what is possible for them. So there's that added bonus. But I love writing for young people. I love giving them mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. I love it, and it's funny to me how much flack young adult literature gets, especially from like adult writers, adult authors. And I'm like, I'm creating readers for you. Give me a little more credit, the kids who read my books now will later read yours. Don't shut me down. Don't write me off. I'm helping you out. So yeah, especially nowadays in the age of TikTok and Instagram, if you can pull a kid in with a book, you've done something. So I'm thankful that they take the time to read mine.
Yeah, I think you just touched on something huge, because I remember when I was growing up, we had the attention spans of a 22-minute sitcom. Now
Yeah.
it's literally, and then it was like 140. That's how old I am. 140 character tweet, now 280. But you're right. It's if you get anybody's attention more than 3 seconds, and even
Yes.
my son who's 18, he was like, Dad, I've been looking at my phone so much, it's hard to read a book, and
Mhm,
he reads like crazy, but he's just
mhm.
like, look at these phones. So you're competing against a lot. You mentioned
Yes.
Tyler Perry. You mentioned how he's cool. Have you gotten to meet any of your heroes when you were growing up, any authors, and gotten to know them? And what has that been like?
I have. I have met some authors that I read. I got to meet Judy Blume once.
No way.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, it's Judy Blume. I was like, oh my God. I've met John Green and had a great sit down conversation with John Green. John is amazing. He gave a blurb for The Hate You Give before it came out. And I've had so many people tell me they knew about that book because John Green
Oh
was
wow.
talking about it. He talked about it on his YouTube channel and stuff. So
I love
I
the videos. They're great.
yes, yes, he's amazing. So him, I got to meet Jacqueline Woodson at the Mississippi Book Festival about a year before The Hate You Give came out, and she'd heard about it. And she was just telling me she was so proud of me and if I needed her for anything. And she still reaches out to me. So,
Wow.
it's always wonderful when your heroes are good, but I do recognize too that because I'm Angie Thomas, I will get better treatment than some people. So that's not me saying everybody is cool because I don't know how they'll be for other people, but they've been cool for me.
This last year, and I'm not going to keep you too much. We'll talk for as long as you want to, but this last year's been hard. You had
Yes.
the virus hit, and I've always told people that the virus is kind of like Toto and the Wizard of Oz, how it just yanked back the curtain and
Mm-hmm.
just revealed, every weakness in our society, every weakness in people, and it's just amazing. Not only was it getting people sick, but it just everything. I mean, and we saw, George Floyd get murdered right before our very eyes, and I mean, I got to tell you, I watched that and I nearly threw up. I
Yeah.
was so angry. I can't even imagine how you felt about it because you're like probably screaming at the television, going, "Damn it! I've been telling you this. Pay attention to this." And I know there had to be, and I felt depressed and angry during that, but I know you must have felt incredibly depressed and angry. And here you are trying to be creative and write a book and everything else. How did
Yeah.
you manage to compartmentalize all the anger and all the chaos going on in the world and then still sit down and be able to write and be creative?
Mhm. Well, therapy is a big help. I'm a big proponent for therapy. There's nothing wrong with talking to somebody. There's nothing wrong with getting help. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm not okay. That's the strongest thing you can do sometimes.
Yeah.
And so therapy helped me a whole lot. But writing helped me too. I was working on Concrete Rose the same week that Mr. Floyd lost his life. In fact, I was finishing up Concrete Rose that week. And it was ironic because the same week that Philando Castile lost his life, I was finishing up The Hate You Give. And so it was deja vu in a way. But what it reminded me was how important this story was of telling the story of this black boy who, for all intents and purposes, does some of the wrong stuff at times.
Yeah.
Maverick is 17 and he's in a gang. He sells drugs and he has become a father. And looking at him at first glance, he would be a stereotype to so many people. And I was reminded too that if he were to lose his life on camera, people would justify it because he was a bad seed,
Yeah.
you know. But my responsibility as a writer to him and specifically to black boys in that moment was to show this young boy, this human boy, and explain the whys to further create empathy for him,
Yeah.
understanding for him. So yes, he's in a gang. He wants protection. Who can't understand that? Yes, he sells drugs. He wants to help his struggling mom out financially. Who can't understand that? We all can. And maybe, just maybe, if we start looking at the whys instead of the whats, we will be a better society.
You
That's
know,
what I truly believe.
yeah, and I see, you love Twitter, I love Twitter. I mean, and I love the conversations, and
Mhm.
but we've become a society now where we just talk past each other,
Yes.
scream past each other, and we don't really get to slow down and get to know each other. And I think that's the gift of your books. is the fact they slow us down and they help us get past the stereotypes or the first impressions or whatever and be able to understand the humanity. And I can completely understand your point about therapy and how important it is. But, I remember a few years ago I had cancer and it completely wigged me out. I mean, it's like, oh, my own body's trying to kill me. But we did a 5K race, and my friend and I, who lost his dad to the same kind of cancer, and that was the most helpful thing in the world, because I felt like I was doing something against this evil force that I couldn't do. So when you're writing your books,
Yeah.
That's got to be good therapy, because you're doing something to be able to fight the very evil that you're seeing on television.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm working on my fourth novel, which is a fantasy book about a 12-year-old kid, and it's partially set in Jackson. And I'm finding ways to talk about these things even through that. Even in a book that's about magic and stuff, I'm finding ways to talk about that, because I recognize that younger kids right now, they need an escape. They need something. They need some hope. They need heroes. They need that. And I want to give them that, but while also addressing the stuff they're dealing with too.
Yeah.
So the only thing I can do some days is write. That's all I can do. That's the only way I know how to change the world. I tell people all the time, if you want to change the world, start by changing the world around you. And the only way I know how to do that is to write.
Now, for me, the really challenges with creativity are when I'm tired.
Yes.
Because I always describe it as, we live in this world right here, and creativity lives out here. And it's almost like Fort Knox, sometimes being able to reach out and grab something and pull it back in. Do you ever have to, I'm not going to say do you have writer block, because if somebody who's ever been creative knows that everybody has writer's block, and you usually have it every day, and you got to work past it. But do you ever have times when you're like really worried the well's going to go dry?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I get burnt out. And what I have to do is just step away from it all. What has helped me is tapping into my childlike self.
Yeah.
Doing things that would bring me joy when I was a kid, like playing video games. I'm a big video gamer. And I will do that, and I'll allow myself to do that. Writer's block is basically your brain's way of saying, help, give me a break. You're doing too much. A lot of times it's the result of overthinking. Writer's block is. A lot of times it's also the result of insecurity, doubt, worry, fear. Writer's block comes from that a lot. And I know it does for me. So if it's me at a point where I'm like, I don't know if this is good enough, and I'm overthinking it, and then suddenly I just can't write, I'm like, okay, let me go do something else. Let me go use my brain some other kind of way. So that's what gets me through it. That's how I push past it. And so far, so good. So far, it's working. At some point, I'm probably gonna have a bad writer's block. And I'm just gonna have to listen to my brain, and give my brain that space. We gotta give ourselves the same kind of grace we give others. That's been my resolution for 2021.
I think that's a good national resolution right now.
Yes.
We
Yes.
just cut ourselves some slack.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Angie, before we go, and like I said, I could talk to you literally for hours. I don't think I have enough hard drive space to save video. But I love talking to you. You inspire me as an artist, and thank you. And on many different levels, and I've just really enjoyed getting to know you over the years on this. You said the new book is coming out. When can we expect that? Considering your new book literally just came out. I'm not going to expect it next week.
I'm not sure just yet. We got stuff to do as far as the business side of it, contracts and stuff like that. But I'm excited about it. I think people in Jackson will really enjoy this one. It's partially set in Jackson. There's mentions of.
Quick. If it's a fantasy book about Jackson, are the streets smooth?
Actually, I was about to tell you, I have a magical explanation for the potholes in this book that I think people will really get a kick out of. There will be a magical explanation for all of the potholes in Jackson in this book. So you got to read it and you will see.
There you go. I always thought it was more of a demonic reason, but I like magical much better.
I didn't say it was a good magic. It could be a dark magic. So you just got to see.
I mean, you got to love a town that's got literally a dormant volcano underneath the fairgrounds. I mean,
yes.
That's a great setting for anything magical. What was your favorite magical book as a child? Mine was Wrinkle in Time. Loved Wrinkle in Time. Just
I was huge. I was huge on Harry Potter.
Oh yeah.
I grew up with Harry, so like I was a huge Harry Potter fan, and I used to think that Hermione was Black. So when I saw the movie, I was very confused. So now I'm getting to write a magical book about a Black girl. So I'm like, there we go. This is gonna be fun.
That is gonna be cool. Yeah, I was just trying to think. If Harry Potter were Black, that would be kind of
yeah. Think of the cultural impact that would have even had. So
to me, it's so amazing as a writer that that J.K. Rowling would literally, and I got to visit the cafe in Edinburgh, Scotland, where she actually wrote the books, which I thought that was kind of geeked out on that a little bit.
That's awesome.
But at the time that my 20-year-old was young, very young when those were coming out, and so I would run to go buy the book and then sit there and read them aloud to him and everything like that. So it was kind of magical for me too, and I kind of felt funny being a 30-year-old sitting there reading these books. And then I realized now these are really good for adults too.
Yes.
Well, any final thoughts before I let you go back and maybe go out and play in the snow a little bit?
Stop buying up all the bread and milk. But no, we just, especially us in Mississippi, we have such strong Southern hospitality. And we show so much love to our neighbors, more so than people realize we do down here. And I just hope that we can start giving ourselves that same love, that same grace, that same patience that we extend to others. I think we'll all be better for it.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, that's the thing. When I moved to Mississippi, I thought I'd be here for 2 years. And I'm just doing the math in my head. This will be my 25th year of living here. I don't know if it's Hotel California you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. I don't know if that's the component on it. I had a couple opportunities to take bigger cartooning jobs, but I stuck here. And one thing I've truly found about this place, and this is terrible grammar, but when things get bad, we get good.
Yes.
And I saw that after Katrina, and I was just like, okay, it was the whole chainsaws and casseroles thing,
Yeah.
You get hit by a tornado, there's a church van in your front yard with people. And with chainsaws and casseroles, they're going to put the trees down and they're going to feed you, But
yes.
But I know that, and I guess as we part, why have you decided to stay here? And I know there's been times you've been frustrated and you've wanted to bolt, and you've got the ability to live anywhere you want to at this point. But why Mississippi?
It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about the kids here. I can do school before the pandemic. I could go to schools easily. I would pop up at schools and take boxes of books, and the kids see me in the streets. They see me in Kroger. They see me at Costco now. They see me around, and they know that I'm here and I'm real and I'm like them. And that reminds them of what's possible. I remember as a little girl, I used to watch Oprah on TV, and my mom would say she's from here, but it didn't seem like that was possible, that this amazing woman was from here. I'd never seen her before. And that's nothing against Oprah. Oprah, do what you want to do. I love you. But, I didn't realize that she was from here, meaning that what she did was possible for a kid like me. So I stay so that the kids here will see me, flesh, blood, bone, and know that what she does is possible. I can do even better. I can do even bigger. I can be even more successful. That means every dream that I have is within reach, because she's in reach. So that's why I stay.
And you're very close to the source of what makes your stories magical too. That always helps also.
Yes. I would not be the writer I am had I not grown up in Mississippi. I just live.
Like for me, I make fun of politicians in cartoons. Hey, where else would I live?
Exactly.
Perfect. Angie, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, and thank you for sharing your talent. The new book, of course, is Concrete Rose. It's out there wherever you can get books anywhere. too. And I do highly recommend Find Your Voice. If you want to write or be creative, it's a fantastic journey as you go through it as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, you take care, stay safe, and try to stay warm. And I hope you keep electricity. That's kind of our new thing.
Yes, yes. Same to you. Same to you.
Amen. Bye-bye.
Bye.